Hey guys, welcome back to Simply You. Be here, be real, be you with Carly Basham. Thank you all so much for tuning in again. It truly means the world to me and more to have you guys here and along for this journey. I'm so excited for today's episode and conversation that we're going to be having today. Without further ado, welcome back to Simply You. Yay! I am so excited to get into it today with you guys, but before we do that, I just want to say thank you so much to my team. Without you guys, this would not be possible, so thank you so much to just all of your all's hard work and buy-in to this process and to this brand. It truly means the world to me. Thank you so much to my friends and my family for your all's constant love and support for me along this crazy journey. It truly means the world. Just thank you all so much. It never goes unnoticed, and I appreciate it so much. I just want to say before we get into it to all of my athletes out there, whether you are in college, whether you are a professional, whether you are in middle school, training and trying to just know that yes, you have a fantastic gift and we all are so appreciative of it, but I just hope that you know that you are so much more than just an athlete, than just a stat. You are a person, you are loved, you are a daughter, you are a woman, you are courageous, you are beautiful, you are strong, you are so many more things than just an athlete, than just your sport. And I just really hope that you can recognize that, believe it, and just really put value in yourself outside of the sport too, because it's just so hard to. But yeah, we're really just going to be starting from phase one of my athletic journey, because it's definitely not been linear, to say the least. For those of you who don't know, I was born and raised in Louisville, Kentucky, so I played club at Kiva and high school at Assumption. And needless to say, it is not for the weak, okay? I had the opportunity to train and play around literally the best of the best from the time I was 12 years old all the way up until it was my time to go to college. So I just think that those years, being able to train not only physically but my mental toughness and my mental state too, it was so crucial into my collegiate career. So I am so thankful for my time that I had at Kiva and Assumption. I got to meet so many amazing people and great teammates, great coaches, and amazing friendships along the way too. I started playing at Kiva whenever I was 10 years old. So whenever I was 10, I played on the 12s team, because at that time I was still playing volleyball and basketball. My mom is from Michigan, but she came to Louisville and she played basketball at Louisville, and then she played overseas in Australia for a couple years there too. So growing up, I was always like, I'm gonna be this basketball player, like I'm gonna be a hooper just like my mama, and I was so excited. And honestly, I was not bad, but I honestly think that I could never do a contact sport to begin with, just because it just would never work. Literally, I remember we were sitting down and she looks at me and she was like, Carly, you are going to go so much further in volleyball. And I was like, okay. I was like, okay, if that's what you say. Ended up playing my 12s years twice, because I wanted to end up staying with my age group, because my first year playing at Kiva, I was an age group ahead. Stayed that next year at 12s, played from 12s up until my 18th year, and it was one of the best years and times of my entire life. Just like the feeling that club tournaments give you, I just think is unmatched. Like walking into the convention center and seeing the tiles laid out and all of the courts and teams warming up, and like, gosh, it was so good. Anyways, played at Kiva from the time I was 12 until 18. Throughout that time, I played high school at Assumption too. So I was training and being around the best of the best constantly. Like, it didn't matter if it was club or if it was high school, I was constantly training around the best of the best, especially liberos. So that was like the best part, because you always had to come with your A game every single day, because you were surrounded by the best of the best liberos, right? I feel like Kiva, Munciana, we are some of like the more known clubs, especially for our like defense and our hustle and our grit. And what was so fun about coming in every single day, because our practices sometimes would be more intense than our games, and that is honestly insane to think about at that level, because I feel like there's even like sometimes in college whenever that's not even the case too. Kiva and Assumption was intense, For those of you all who don't know him, the man, the myth, the legend, as we call him, Ron Cordes, he is the king of volleyball, the king of Louisville, the king of Kiva, and truthfully, I owe him so much towards my volleyball career and journey. He has helped me so much, not only through, yes, like the physical training, but also just like the mental aspect of it too. Like, that man is the epitome of what a ride or die is for his players. And I really think that it doesn't matter what age he coached you at or what year it was, he is always going to be there for you. And I feel like if you ask any alumni or any player or person who played for Ron, they could tell you the same exact thing. He is just that type of coach that once you play for him, you are like locked in with him for life. And it is something so special. It's just his investment within his players isn't just for that season or isn't just for his own selfish goals, right? Like, it is literally to make us better as players and as people too. And I was just so lucky to have the opportunity to be around a coach like him from basically the time that I started taking volleyball seriously up until I went off for college. Like, it was just such a blessing. I remember there was this one day, this was my 14th year, it was my first year that I like officially played for Ron. It was one of like our first practices of the club season. Came up to our team because we were all getting ready for practice, shooting shit. Like, my team, especially in like club in high school, we were the most like goofiest, funniest team I think you would ever like imagine. But then it would be so funny just seeing how we would transfer over and just have this like flip, which, speaking of the flip, brings me to, we're all getting ready for practice. It's like the pre-game shenanigans, pre-practice shenanigans that we got going on. And he comes up to us and he has this bag and he's like, I brought something for you guys. And we're like, okay, sure. What is it? He goes, I brought y'all light switches. And we're like, Ron, light switches? Like, what the hell do we need a light switch for? But then he's passing out. We all get one, right? And he goes, put this on your bag. So then we're all putting the light switch on our bag. We're like, Ron, like, what does this mean? Like, it has to mean something. So, like, what does it mean? He was like, this is y'all's bitch switch. And he goes, I want you all to be as nice as the day is long outside of volleyball, off the court. But as soon as you step foot onto the court, you better turn that bitch switch on, take the claws off, take the earrings off, and it is time to battle. He instilled that in our brains from that moment up until literally I left for college. Like, as soon as you stepped foot onto the court, it was time to flip that bitch switch on, and it was time to go. There was no being friends. There was no laughing. It was intense. It was a battle. We were grinding. We were working every single day. And I truthfully think that just having that level of intensity at such an early age brought me such a level of mental toughness that I think carried me along just like in so many ways throughout my life. Yes, within volleyball, but also like outside of volleyball too even. It's such a good example of the culture that Kiva and Assumption builds themselves off of, right? If you watch any player who came from or played from Kiva, who played and came from Assumption, their level of intensity is always just unmatched. And I really think that that is truly a reflection of the training and of the mentality that Ron, that all of the other coaches instilled in the players that were at Kiva, play at Kiva, that came before them. And it is just so, like, that's what honestly what was so scary about our team, is because normally I feel like you have teams and they're filled with like a bunch of different types of personalities and things like that, but especially on our Assumption team, I mean, our team was filled with almost the exact same type of personalities as far as just being intense and being hungry and being like competitors. Like, when it was time to play, like, it was time to play. I mean, it wasn't even just our starting team, it was our bench team was matching that exact same level. So I mean, our scrimmages every single day were battles. And that's what I was saying, just how like our practices would be more intense than our games majority of the time, just because the level of talent and the level of intensity that was in that gym every single day was insane. Playing at that high level, being around so many high level players, it comes with high expectations, right? So yes, it was fun. Yes, I mean, we would go after it, and we knew that we were probably the best team at that time, just because of the level of competition and competitors that we had throughout our gym every single day. It was unmatched. I really feel like you just did not see that anywhere else at that time. So we have this rivalry here in Louisville, Kentucky. It's like the Assumption Sacred Heart rivalry. Mercy's thrown in there too. There was this one game specifically where we had lost to Sacred Heart, and I mean, at that point, we just should have won, but we didn't. So we came in the next day for practice, and I mean, we knew that it was going to be bad. Like, it was just one of those days where, like, your stomach hurt walking in practice. You just knew that y'all were going to be running, that y'all were going to be diving and sweating and getting yelled at. Like, you just knew that you were about to be worked. That was clear. We're walking into practice, and, I mean, you can just feel it's just intense already in there, right? And, I mean, we have these newspapers just taped on the wall. Ron and the rest of our coaches literally printed and copied the newspaper saying that Sacred Heart beat us, and printed them and taped them all across the wall for us to see the entire practice. We also had to turn our shirts inside out because we weren't allowed to represent Assumption. We also would have this run called the river. So we would have this river that we would have to run every single preseason. We would literally have trash cans out to the side where girls would be running. If you have to stop and throw up, that's fine, but you better get your ass moving, and you better not quit, and you better not stop. So needless to say, there were very high expectations. There were lots of hard days and days where we were walking in, whether it was Assumption, whether it was Kiva, where your stomach would be in knots, where you just knew that you were about to get worked, or you just knew that most of the practice was going to have to be running or diving or just doing pitch drills, and just, the things that us as volleyball players, it's never fun to do, right? But we all go through it, and it makes us better. So that's just the environment that I grew up in, especially within volleyball. I loved it. I think, honestly, you could tell that I came from that type of environment if you watch me play, especially in college. Anyways, that takes me to my next journey. So that was where I had started my volleyball journey. So I had an amazing start, right? I had an amazing foundation. At that point, I knew that there was potential, right? And I knew that I wanted to chase the greatest potential that was out there. So I started my first 2 years playing at Texas A&M. There, truthfully, absolutely loved the school. The school was amazing. It was the type of environment that I wanted to be around, as far as was just obsessed with Aggieland in general. I loved the athletic programs there. I loved how it wasn't just football or volleyball that was successful, but at that time our basketball program was successful, tennis. We were just an overall very strong school. I absolutely loved the school. It was exactly the type of big school environment that I had wanted. So I am playing at Texas A&M, and I literally knew, y'all, from that first semester that place was not for me. It was my first summer there. I had gotten there, I think, in June or something. At that time, we had just been doing open gyms and workouts and everything like that. And I remember I'd been calling my mom, and I was I don't know, something just feels off. It just feels kind of wrong. And she was well, it's probably just because you're in a new environment, away from home. Just give it some time. And I was okay, you're probably right. Whatever. We go through season. That first season, I was it just still did not feel good, to be honest. I mean, our team was kick-ass. My freshman year, we made it to the Sweet 16. It was amazing. I was able to train and learn from one of the best liberos. So I was so incredibly blessed about that. But there was just something throughout the sport that just was not lining up, right? It was not connecting. It was not matching. I could see that the environment slowly started just to get more and more toxic. I continued having conversations with my mom, and I was I just don't know. I don't know if it's me, if it's them, or if it's just not a good fit in general. It's just not working. We just kept being just keep trying, just keep trying, just keep trying. And then we get to going into my sophomore year, and at this point, that feeling just got worse and worse, and I was just at this point just down a super dark hole. I was just super unhappy. It just felt like a constant struggle throughout volleyball and throughout my social life, and it didn't matter what I was doing. It was just no improvements were being made. I had known that I was capable of greatness. I really just needed the guidance to get there. I truthfully am just not the type of person who can just get themselves there, right? Like I was just not born with like the resources, and just like that, just I am the type where it truly takes a village for me. I know that, and I had always been around these great figures in my life, right? Especially throughout the sport of volleyball. And I just think that whenever you pour so much time and energy into the sports and being at the facilities, or going to practices and going to lifts, like if you don't enjoy the people who you are seeing and interacting with every single day, it is going to make it miserable. I wish honestly that I would have just ripped off the band-aid a little bit sooner. I ended up sticking it out for 2 years, and it just got to a point where the environment was honestly just really toxic. I did not feel like I was improving in my volleyball skills at all. Mine and the coach's relationship was just getting worse and worse. Was dreading going into practice every single day. Like I wasn't even nervous at that point. I literally just dreaded it. And I was like, should I just quit volleyball? Like, am I just not talented? Am I just not good enough? All of these things. And I really just think that if you are in a toxic environment, if you're in an environment that is just not in alignment with yourself and with where you're at right then and there, it doesn't matter what you do. It is going to feel and be such a struggle getting yourself out of that situation, right? But that's just where I honestly think just rip it off. If it does not feel right, it is because it is not right. And I think that there is a very fine line between that gut feeling of being like something's wrong versus something being hard, right? But there is a distinct difference. And once you really start to become aware of that gut feeling that's like something's not right here versus something just being hard, where you can kind of take over mentally and just push through that, I think that we can really start to avoid being in toxic situations for that long, for that duration of time. I truthfully left there feeling my worst. I was at my lowest. I honestly just did not have any confidence. I had no love for the game again. I honestly hated the game. Had no desire or motivation to practice, to watch film, to even like learn and grow. Like I was just so sick and done with it. So once I transferred, oh God, that was so hard. I literally remember, just because it was like the volleyball at Texas A&M for myself and a lot of other people, but it was honestly just so draining and terrible. But that being said, I met some of my bestest friends ever there. So that is what honestly kept me there for so long, was just because the friendships that I had, like they are some of my core best friends and people to this day. And that's just where I am so thankful for those 2 years, because it gave me them. And like I would not want to change anything. I would not take anything back. I would go through everything again 1,000 times if it meant to have those friendships that I do now. That was honestly the hardest part. Was I made the decision to transfer after my sophomore year. There was just a point during that season of my sophomore year where I was just at like my breaking point, and I had actually called Ron. And I just remember I sat in my car and talked to him for probably 2.5 to 3 hours. I was just like laying it all out to him, telling him where I was at, telling him like what was going on, and really just being like, I just feel so lost and I don't know where to go from here. Like I don't know if this is really like what college athletics looks like and feels like, if this is the point that I was trying to make it, like that feeling whenever you're like, this is it. It just like, I just couldn't believe that that was it. Truthfully, I mean, like my mom was like, I don't know what to tell you. She was like, you can transfer. I mean, she clearly does not know a lot about the volleyball world as far as, like the transfer process and everything like that. So that's just where we just need to get in contact with Ron and see his point of view. So that brings me to that conversation. Ron and I are talking, and literally I'm like telling him everything, and his first thing he said to me was, get out of there. He said, put yourself in the transfer portal and never look back. The second he said that, I literally just broke down, and I was like, I'm so scared too. Like, what are people gonna think? What if I don't find a place to go? Like, there were so many questions. There were so many things that I was just fearful of at the time. He was just like, just put faith in it, put yourself first, and I promise you it's going to work out exactly how it's meant to. That conversation really helped me, and I honestly think that that was the push that I needed to take the next step to actually transfer. Finished out that season, ended up transferring after that season was over. I had been deciding if I had wanted to just go straight into the next spring semester, but I was honestly so mentally fucked up that I was like, I just need to take a second, because I was like, I don't even know like if I want to play at this point. Like I know that I do, but I still hate going into the gym and practicing. So I decided to take a step back that spring semester, and I honestly just went back to my roots. I started training at Kiva again, working with some of my old coaches. That was honestly the best thing that I could have ever done for myself. I could just slowly start to see and feel my love for the game and my passion for the game come out more and more. I mean, who I was at the start of that spring semester versus the end was two completely different people. But I would have never gotten there if I never took a step back. That honestly just really showed me that sometimes, especially in athletics, sometimes you need to take a step back in order to find that love for the game again. I think it's really easy to get burnout, especially in today's age. But it can be really easy, especially if you're not in the right place, to lose that love and passion for the game and for the sport that you're playing. But that's just where I want to go back to. You are not just an athlete, right? If you are in a situation or on a team or dealing with a coach where you really just are finding yourself unhappy or losing that passion and love and drive for the game, yes, I think it is good to try and push through and overcome it, find different ways to try to add value back to it. But I mean, if you get to a point where you've tried everything and you're still feeling like that, or if it's still just like that gut feeling, that's whenever I really want to challenge you just to take that leap forward and put your happiness first, right? Because taking that step back was the scariest thing that I could have ever done, especially just being a libero. Unfortunately, even though liberos, you literally can't play the game without them, but for some reason they are like the last picking, which I mean, yes, setters and hitters and all of those positions are extremely important. It's just the reality for the libero position that they get the least amount of money and they are the last to get recruited and there's the least of them on the team. Even though I'm a firm believer that defense wins championships, so you would think you want to have a few more defensive players in your back pocket. That was honestly such a huge worry and fear for me too. Just the fact that I was a libero going into the transfer portal, and I was just like, I don't know if there's going to be any opportunity out there, right? I knew that I wanted to continue playing at a high level. That's what I had always been around and played around. My goal was to stick to the Power 5 conferences, but with that, I mean, again, I had to be realistic with that too, and I knew that you already had these top 20 programs, you already had their set bros, right? So that's where I was just really scared. I was really anxious. I just took it day by day. I just kept telling myself, and I had so many conversations with Ron and Ann and Courtney, and really just breaking down the process. And that's why I really think it all just comes down to believing in the process, buying into the process. We will never know what exactly the finish line looks like. And honestly, at Washington State, that is where my love for the game honestly flourished. I was so blessed to be surrounded by so many amazing fans there and just such supportive coaches and teammates too. Washington State really showed me what unconditional love means. I'm not saying that my time at Washington State was linear at all. There was definitely a lot of ups and downs. I would say a lot more downs than ups, but just throughout my time there, my love and passion for the game grew so much. But more importantly, I just felt like I was slowly growing into the woman and person that I had always wanted to, and I really give thanks and credit to my coaches and my teammates throughout those difficult and hard times. That's really where my coaches and teammates stepped up for me. They showed me what unconditional love and support is and means. They showed me the value of accountability and of forgiveness, really just of community. That is something that Washington State really ingrained in me, is that during those hard times and those hard moments, that's whenever your community, your support system is there to pick you up. And I saw that not only through, yes, the coaches and the supporting staff and my teammates, but also through the fans too. Like the fans at Washington State were incredible. It's honestly crazy how I was playing at Texas A&M versus at Washington State too, because I was like two completely different players. It was kind of scary almost. Like this is so bad, but I literally couldn't even watch myself play at Texas A&M for a year after I left there, just because I was so like embarrassed and traumatized. And I just was not playing like myself at all. Like I did not even recognize who was on the court. It was just so weird. It felt like watching a different person out there playing, but like I knew that that was myself. And that's just where I just knew that it was not for me at all, because I didn't even like recognize myself out there. Versus like at Washington State, I would like watch videos of myself or film, and I would be like, yeah, like, that's me. Like, there she is, you know, she's back. And it was just so much fun. And, like, my teammates, y'all, like, my teammates at Washington State were so fun and literally some of the best people ever. We had so much fun there. Throughout my time at Washington State, my love for the game came back, and honestly, it was greater than it had ever been before. So it was towards my COVID year. So we had COVID, and I ended up getting that year back. Girls in my class, we all decided to stay as like an entire class. So I was able to receive my master's in strategic communications there. I'm so thankful for that opportunity as well. It was in the end of my last season, my 5th year. That was whenever the PVF league started to be announced. And that was like a big deal at the time because I truthfully never thought that I was going to become a professional volleyball player. I was like, that was just never something that I had even thought about for some reason. But as that 5th year started to move on, there kept being talk about the PVF, the first volleyball league in the United States, what's going on with it. So I had talked with some of my teammates. They were talking about this PVF league, and I was like, what's going on? What is this about? We had been talking about it, and they were like, you should go talk to Jen about it. That was our coach. So I had a meeting with my coaches at Washington State, and I was like, hey, I've been hearing a lot about this Professional Volleyball Federation League. Do you want to know anything about it or how to get into it? Like, I really don't even know if I am going to make it. I just want to know more, like, about it. She was like, I am just going to go ahead and put your name into, like, the draft list or whatever. I really think that you could be considered to become drafted. And I was like, who? Just because, I mean, like, mind you, I was good, but I was in no means, like, great. Like, I did not have the best stats. I did not have, like, I was not, like, the Lexi Rodriguez, right? So I truthfully was not expecting to be drafted at all, just because I knew that there was a lot better liberos out there. My coach was very determined and stubborn on putting my name into the draft, so she went ahead and did that for me. It was whenever we were in tournaments. We had been hosting that year, and then we played Pitt in the Sweet 16. I was starting to get some calls from some of the teams in the PVF, and I was like, there's no way. Like, there's just no way. It was after we had played Pitt in the Sweet 16. We had lost, obviously. At that point, like, I had heard from a few coaches, nothing was really for certain. Thought that there was maybe like a little bit of hope, but I also was like, there's no way. Just because, again, there's so many other liberos out there, like, why me? So then I get this call around like 10:06, and it has the Michigan area code on it, and I'm like, oh my goodness, like, this cannot be real. So I take it. They tell me that I'm getting drafted, that I'm drafted to the Grand Rapids Rise team in Michigan, which is actually crazy because that's where my grandpa on my mom's side, who I did not unfortunately get to meet, he passed away before I was born, but that's where he was originally from, because again, my mom's from Michigan. That's kind of a full circle moment in a lot of ways, so that was really cool. But I got drafted, which was honestly one of the biggest and best accomplishments of my life. It was amazing. Found out that I was drafted, had to pack up all of my stuff to move out of Pullman, go back home to Louisville, and I had to report to Michigan. I think it was like 1 or 2 days after Christmas. Like, it was insane. So I'm in Michigan now. I'm going through training camp, and like, I signed my contract and everything, so it was just like surreal. So we're in training camp throughout that first month, and at this point I feel like I am living out my dream. Like, I feel like I'm living like my best life. I'm like on top of the world with it, right? Like, to me, I have my life planned out for the next like 10 to 12 years. I'm going to be a professional volleyball until I'm like 30, 32. Like, I'll start making content. I'll start doing all of this and just be living out my dream, right? I don't know what I was thinking. So we get through training camp, and it was towards that last week of January, towards the last week of camp, and I get pulled into the office, and basically they tell me that I'm cut. And let me just tell y'all right now, that was one of the hardest moments of my life, just because it was like I got a taste of the exact lifestyle that I had always wanted, that I felt like I'd worked so hard to get, and I was training around the best of the best, right? I was in an environment within volleyball where I was coming in and learning and getting better every single day. It felt honestly like a better, higher level version of like my Kiva and like Assumption days, where it was just the level of the intensity, the mentality coming into the gym every single day was so consistent and was just spread around every single player and all the coaches. It was just my dream. It was so fun. To hear that I did not make it was one of the most heartbreaking things I ever heard. And I just felt like I was at rock bottom, to be honest. And that's something that I think is not talked about enough, especially just within being an athlete, is how much we place value in our accomplishments in our sport. And for me especially, like, I to that point had only identified myself as a volleyball player, and at that moment it was like I wasn't even stepping away from volleyball. It was like volleyball was just like taken away from me, and that was something that was really hard, just because I wasn't ready to say goodbye to the game. You know, like, again, in my head I was ready to continue playing the sport for the next 10 to 12 years. So knowing that that was not going to happen, knowing that I did not know what I was going to do with the rest of my life, what was going to come next, I was scared. I didn't know what to do. I was anxious. I was angry. I kept on asking myself what I could have done better and what I could have done more of. In reality, that was just the name of the game. Unfortunately, again, being a libero, there's very limited spots. It just really was hard trying to navigate and see what was going to come from it. So from there, I get home. I mean, I'm just devastated because, again, from that point, I had always been identifying myself as an athlete, as a volleyball player, and I really didn't see or find much value within myself outside of the sport too. So if I wasn't playing the sport, if I wasn't working out for the sport, if I wasn't watching film or practicing, I did not see value within my life. I didn't really feel like there was anything else out there in my life, which is honestly insane to think about. This world is so big and there's so many different hobbies and interests and things that you can get in and that you can find passion for, and I was so tunnel visioned on volleyball is the only way, volleyball, which, again, I love the sport of volleyball. I am still extremely passionate about it. It is still very much a huge factor within my life to this day, but at that moment it felt like my entire world, my entire identity was just ripped apart from me, and I really did not know how to navigate from that moment. And that's just where I really wish that the conversation with athletes was talked about more, and it was just more consistent and happened a lot sooner. If you are an athlete out there, just know that it is okay if you are no longer playing your sport, if you are trying to navigate your next move outside of your sport, if you are trying to find outside passions from your sport, or if you are just feeling like you're burnt out or that your sport is consuming you, whatever it may be, just know that, one, it's okay. You are going to get through it, and really just believe, know, and have faith that there is so much more to you outside of the sport that you're playing, outside of just being an athlete. And I really just think that with just how big and accessible social media is nowadays too, it's really easy for our fans and for the fan bases of these sports and athletic programs to really just be picky and judgmental and cruel towards so many athletes, when you don't see the behind the scenes of what these athletes have to go through and endure every single day. You don't see them having to go through an hour lift to a 3-hour practice to an hour worth of rehab to an hour worth of treatment, as well as trying to balance school and family and social and friendships and film. It's just, it can be draining, and there is so much time and energy and effort and work that goes into it that we do not see behind the scenes. So us as fans, us as supporters of these athletes and of these sports and athletic programs, we need to show respect and we need to value the work that these athletes are putting in. Athletes are so much more than just a stat, than just a ranking, than just a title. They are humans, they are people, they have feelings, they get frustrated, they get sad, they can compete. You know, I think especially within women's sports too, some people get very uncomfortable seeing women really compete, when in reality I think that that is the beauty of sports, is that it allows especially women to kind of unleash that mask and really show their strength and their power. As women, we are taught to push down that side of us, and that's where I think sports is such a good release and such a good way to place emphasis on the power of our drive, of our competitiveness, of our motivation that we have. So that's just where I just want to remind all of us who either are athletes or are supporters of athletes, of sports in general. Athletes are so much more than just their sport, than just a stat. They are people, they have feelings, and just know that they are pouring their heart and soul and then some into this sport, okay? So who are we to judge their performance? Who are we to judge how they're living their life, how they look, how they're styling their hair, whatever it is? If you are not being supportive, if you do not have anything good to say it, literally don't say it, because I promise you these athletes either have heard it or they are saying it to themselves. They do not need to hear it from you if it is negative. I promise you that. That is honestly just something that process has shown me too, is just all that life can bring you and add outside of sports. As soon as that moment happened, I really didn't know what was going to come from me. I didn't know what was going to come next. Being in this position now, where I am now a host of my own podcast, and I have just so many exciting things going for me. I live a life where I'm able to travel and see my friends and family whenever I want, where I can live comfortably, where I am just surrounded by people that I love, and really just living a life where I feel valued and where I feel appreciated too. And that would not have came throughout that hardship and that obstacle too, right? So I would not change anything for the world. It was definitely a process. The process is still ongoing. It is continuous. It is never going to end. I think that there's so much beauty in the process because we don't know what's going to happen next. We don't know where we'll be in 5 months, in a year. That's the beauty of manifestation too, is you can really try to take control of the unknown by placing vision to it. Whenever I was cut, I came back home, really spent some time with my family to regroup and really find what I valued and what I saw as important in my life to continue my next step and figure out what my next step even was. So that's where I was able to travel a lot, which was so much fun, and that's where I really found my passion and love for travel. So I was able to travel. I went on a couple of family vacations, which is honestly insane to think about, that was my first time going on vacation with my family in like 6 years. And that is another thing that I don't think fans realize all the time, is the amount of sacrifices that play into being an athlete. Athletes sacrifice so much. We sacrifice our bodies, our time, our energy. We sacrifice holidays. We sacrifice being able to travel and go on trips. Like, there is so many things that athletes miss out on in life to be able to perform their sport and entertain us and you guys, right? So that's just where, again, that level of respect and value for our athletes has to be there. So bringing it back to whenever I was cut, I was really just trying to figure out what my next move was and what that looked like. So that was whenever I started to travel with my family, which again was crazy that was the first time that my family and I had traveled in like 6 years. We went on like 2 beach trips, which was so fun, and then I was able to meet up with some of my old college roommates, which was incredible too. We got to travel to California, which was the most insane trip of my life. But that was really whenever I realized how much I loved and had a passion for travel, and I really wanted my lifestyle not to completely be centered around travel, but just to give me the flexibility to travel. And that's where I started to realize the pros and cons to being an athlete, being a professional athlete, and figuring out what was coming next within my life too. There are going to be pros and cons to every single situation within this life, right? The situation that you are in is not permanent, okay? Everything within this life is temporary. Knowing that, so that you can go at whatever you're doing right now with 100% effort. There's always going to be pros and cons to every single situation that this life brings us, right? It doesn't matter what situation we're in. One, it's going to be temporary. There is nothing that is truly permanent within this life. So knowing that whatever situation you are in, you are going to get through it, you are going to find a way out of it, and you are going to come on top of it even better. Whenever that situation happened in my life, I literally couldn't even see or plan. I didn't have a goal set. I couldn't even think straight. But that's just where I was forced to go into the focus and mentality of just taking it day by day. Every single day I focused on doing something that brought me passion, that brought me happiness and fulfillment. And I really just trusted that if I continued doing that every single day and continued finding passions that were outside of the sport of volleyball, that I was going to end up exactly where I was going to be at. Because again, this life is too big. There's too much that we can access and have and receive within this life to be one-dimensional. We have so many more skill sets besides just one, and that's where really just pushing outside of your box to really show and prove to yourself all that you are made of. You don't just have to be one thing. You don't just have to be a volleyball player. You don't just have to be an athlete. You don't just have to be a podcaster or a director. You don't have to be just your title or just this box that you are putting yourself in. You can be so many other things. That's just where you have to take the leap and have the courage to push outside of your comfort zone. However, you may be put into situations like myself did, where I was almost thrown into that uncomfortable situation, right? And sometimes if you need a little nudge from the universe to put yourself in an uncomfortable situation to make it grow, sometimes that just has to happen. Kind of that let them theory from Mel Robbins, kind of that let it be theory comes, where whatever situation comes your way, it is meant for you, right? I'm a firm believer in rejection is redirection. So if you're being rejected by something, by someone, just know that something better is coming, something better is out there for you. And it can be really hard to see past that. It can be really hard to believe it in that moment. In that moment, you're feeling a lot of hurt, a lot of grief and confusion and anger probably, which is all completely normal. It's all fair. Feel all of it. But also that's just where in the back of your mind, knowing, trusting, and believing that that is not the end for you, that that is not the end of your story. That's just the end of that chapter. For me, I was so set on volleyball being my entire story of my book, when in reality, the universe just had to be a part of just one chapter. And it took me a while to see that and to accept it. Once I really started to kind of flip and turn the pages, kind of take that step forward, that was whenever I was starting to see the big picture unfold and really start to see myself develop into the woman that I have always meant to be and become. But again, that would not happen unless I was pushed, unless I was forced to almost figure it out myself and really figure out what I wanted to do. What were my values? Like, what was my belief system? What did I want to do within this world? Who was the person that I wanted to become and embody? So that's really where that kind of push, it really allowed me to find more range within myself and really push myself outside of that one-dimensional box. And now I firmly believe and firmly feel that I am so much more than just an athlete, than just a volleyball player. And I hope that you guys know that if you are somebody who has recently just ended their athletic career, if you are somebody who is in the middle of your athletic career and you are thinking, what am I going to do once I'm done with sports? Or just because I think that also people expect athletes to just have everything figured out too, when in reality that's not the case. And honestly, I feel like it's so hard for athletes specifically, outside experiences that aren't within our sport. Whatever you are doing is right. Whatever you are doing is meant for you. If you are somebody who thought that they had their life figured out and it felt like your life, honestly, the rug just got swept beneath you and you're back on square one on your feet. If you are an athlete who just had your career finish, if you are an athlete who is stressing over what is yet to come, just know that all of that is completely normal. You are not alone. But more importantly, know that that is not the end. Okay, there is so much out for you in this world. You are not alone. We are all here, and you have so much that you are capable of, and it is all within you. All you have to do is just tap into it. And I cannot wait to continue that journey, to continue that process with you. I think that the most important thing that we can do is just continue taking it day by day, continue trusting the process, look at our life as a book. Instead of trying to read ahead and not understanding what's going on, all that we can do is be right where we are at and trust that the story is going to work itself out how it is meant to be. You cannot see what is already paved out for you, right? That is the beauty of the unknown, but also it can be scary sometimes too. And that's just where you can really start to build that confidence within yourself by doing the little things right, by creating a lifestyle, by creating habits that bring you that fulfillment, that bring you that passion, that drive, that happiness, and that fulfillment. If you do those things and take it one day at a time, the process is going to get you the result that you want. I also think that it's really important to recognize that passions outside of sports are probably going to look and feel completely different too. That's something that I was really struggling with. Is I kept on trying to seek out something that gave me the exact feeling as I had whenever I was playing volleyball, and I just was honestly never able to find anything that was even coming close to it. And I kept getting frustrated, and I was like, there's just nothing out there that is for me, because nothing else is giving me that level of passion and drive and motivation that I had felt and that I loved and that I lived for, right? But that's just where I really want to challenge you to continue pushing out of your comfort zone, continue trying new things, trying to find new habits and new interests, because I promise you that passion, that motivation, that drive, it is in you. It may just look a little bit different. Just because your passion is looking a little bit different than it did throughout your sport does not mean that it is less than, does not mean that it is less valuable. If anything, I think that it can create an influx of more opportunities within you, right? Because you are just increasing your range day by day. If you haven't found that exact thing outside of your sport that brings you the same level of passion, it is okay. It is going to come. Just continue trusting the process and believing in yourself too. That's something that's really special about the process, is being able to pour into yourself. I think that within sports especially, you pour into your teammates, you pour into the execution and your fan base and your coaches so much that you rarely actually pour into yourself. So whenever you are given an opportunity and a chance to pour back into your own cup, take it and overfill it, truthfully. Because the second that you start to fill up your own cup and really pour into yourself and invest in yourself, that is whenever you are going to find yourself wanting to seek out those challenges and seek out those improvements and those opportunities that maybe you were afraid of or just didn't want to go for because they maybe were a bit outside of your comfort zone. But that's the beauty of it, right? That's the beauty of the process. And all that being said too, truly believing within yourself that you are bigger than just a sport, that you are meant for something so much bigger than yourself, than your sport on this earth. And that's honestly what it comes down to. If we just keep that belief and really live out a life that exemplifies being bigger than one thing, that is where you are not only going to be able to pour into your own cup, but you are going to be pouring into so many other cups around you too. That is also something that I really struggled with throughout that time after being cut, was really just trying to find my worth and my value. I placed so much worth and value within myself as an athlete and not as a person. So as soon as it was time for me to focus on who I was as a person, I just looked at myself as not valuable or as less than, or I was just talking to myself so poorly and negatively. And then I would wonder why my relationship with myself was so bad and why I hated being around myself and being like alone. Well, it was because I was talking to myself terrible. I just really hope that you know you are so much more than just a sport. You are so much more than being an athlete. You are capable of accomplishing anything that you set your mind to. You can and you will. You are enough in every single way. I think just trying to find ways throughout your everyday life to find value within yourself and ways that you can also give to other people is the greatest thing that you can do on this earth. If you are focusing on doing those two things, you are going to reach your goals and you are going to get to exactly where you are meant to be. So just know that wherever it is that you want to be in life, even if you are not there yet, even if it seems like it is not possible, or if it seems like you might be getting redirected to something else, just know that you are meant for greatness, that you are meant for great things, and that most importantly, you are capable of great things too. And the first step to that is believing in that yourself, investing in yourself, and the rest will come. Thank you all so much for tuning in to Simply You. It truly means the world to have you guys here. Make sure to tune in to next week's episode. Thank you so much to my team. Thank you to my friends and my family for your all's constant support and love throughout this journey and process. It truly means the world to me. I cannot wait to see and talk with you guys next week. I hope you all have a phenomenal week. Go kick ass. You all got this. Be confident, believe in yourself, and just know that you are enough and you are worth it. I will see you all next week on Simply You. Be here, be real, be you with Carly Basham.